You've always known, deep down, that something was shifting. That moment when you realise you no longer allow anyone to treat you like shit. That moment when you know without hesitation that you're worthy of respect. And isn't it fascinating how, as you step into this new way of being, you begin to recognise something even more powerful. The more you stand up for yourself, the more respect you command. The more you set boundaries, the more the world acknowledges your presence. And maybe you used to twist yourself to fit others' expectations. Maybe there was a time when you tried to be what they wanted, what you thought they needed. But isn't it interesting that now, as you fully embrace your truth, you find a new kind of freedom, a deeper kind of power, a sense of clarity so profound it just feels right. Because the truth is, the more you express your reality, the more the world begins to shift. And you know this, don't you? That moment when you hold your ground, that moment when you refuse to doubt yourself. It's like the world has no choice but to align with your certainty. And the more you try to shake your belief, the stronger you stand. Because you don't need to convince them, you simply are. And as you are, the world follows. And isn't it fascinating how, the more you let go, the further you go? It's as if all this overthinking, all that racing, all that noise, it was never yours to carry. And when you breathe deeply, fully, letting the tension dissolve, you realize something incredible. You're at your most powerful when you're still. Because true strength, it isn't in the rush. It's in the presence, the awareness, the knowing. And so, as you move forward effortlessly, naturally, those old patterns, those outdated beliefs, they begin to dissolve, don't they? Because what once seemed like armour was only ever a cage. And as you step beyond it, you recognise the truth. Real power comes from authenticity. Real strength comes from integration. And with every breath, you integrate more. So now, as you take this in, as your unconscious mind continues to process, what happens when you think about this now? Because something's shifted, hasn't it? And you don't even need to know exactly how, because that change is already happening. And isn't it fascinating how something deep inside you already knows? That moment when you realise you no longer tolerate disrespect. Something shifts. Something locks into place. And maybe you hadn't noticed it before, but now you can feel it settling in. Stronger, clearer, undeniable. Because isn't it true that for too long you allowed yourself to be shaped by others, twisting, bending, moulding yourself into what you thought they wanted you to be? And yet, isn't it even more true that none of that ever gave you the respect, the power, and the freedom you truly deserved? So now something different happens. The more you stand your ground, the more you set your boundaries, the more they respect you. And you might even wonder, why did it take so long to see this? But the answer doesn't matter. Because now that you know, you can never go back. And if someone ever told you to be quiet, to shrink, to fit in, you might ask yourself, whose voice was that really? Was it ever mine? Or was it something I once believed, but no longer need? And as you think about that now, something begins to dissolve. Those old rules, those limits, the ones felt so real. Were they ever truly yours? Because now you see clearly. Every rule you ever accepted, you can now reject. Every belief that once caged you, is nothing more than a thought. And thoughts can change. And as that realization spreads, doesn't it feel lighter, freer? Because you know now. You were never the problem. The problem was the belief. And the belief is no longer needed. And maybe for so long, you tried to be strong in a way that wasn't truly strength. Maybe you told yourself emotions were weakness, and so you shut them down. wasn't that just another illusion? Because now, as you allow yourself to feel, to breathe, to integrate, something powerful happens. True strength isn't in suppression. True strength is in presence, in awareness and truth. And if you ever feel hesitation, that moment of fear before you speak, before you stand tall, before you take what's yours, just ask yourself, what's stopping me? What's really stopping me? And do I even need that anymore? And in that moment you realise you don't. You never did. And now you never will again. And isn't it interesting how the more you let go, the further you go? How the more you release control, the more control you truly gain. And you can wonder about that now, as you feel something shifting deep inside, because that change is already happening. So as you move forward, as you stand taller, as you breathe deeper, what do you notice now? Because something's changed, hasn't it? You don't even need to know how, because your unconscious mind already knows.